to the February 8th meeting of the Board of Regional Commissioners and ask you to join us in reciting the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
And if you would also join with us in remembering and praying for our troops who serve both here and abroad, and for those who gave their lives for our country. Thank you. And now we have public comment, and we're very happy to have with us today two of our Americorps volunteers. So if you'd introduce yourselves and give us an update, we'd love to hear it.
Sure. My name is Keith Hopkins. I'm the program supervisor in the Bourne House. So yeah, we've been really busy this winter. We brought in a new member about a month ago, and have just been busy doing wet fests and trail maintenance in the town of Sandwich. A lot of Barnstable herring runs in Marston's Mills and Katuitt, shell fishing, and yeah.
And my name's Emma Songs. I'm the well fleet supervisor. We were going to bring some members to talk to you guys about all the stranding work we've been doing, but the members we were going to bring just got called to a stranding in
Yes, I heard that on the radio this morning.
Yeah, so they're out dealing with 3 dolphins, and instead you get us.
Did you bring pictures? You make
No.
great pictures.
You can check the newspaper, but they've got plenty. But yeah, so the Wellfleet House has been really busy responding to strandings. There's a big article about it yesterday, but so you probably know that 129 dolphins have stranded since January 12th. We've responded to more than 10 stranding events. We're still kind of working out the numbers. And they've released 37, and we've dealt with at least 20 of those dolphins, releasing them. So we've been pretty busy. Everyone still likes, can't complain about saving a dolphin's life.
Can I ask you, how are you getting, I know that you're Americorps volunteers, so you're here getting different experiences, but I know that IFAW does training for these strandings and that sort of thing. So have you gone through that training with IFAW? You did?
Yeah,
okay.
Part of our first month of training when the members come in is a day with IFAW training, their most basic level of stranding response, so we're trained to respond.
So Americorps is connected to IFAW in that capacity, so that so some of you are trained if this...
Yeah, and we
did not realize that that's one of the things that you do, so that's great.
It's part of our disaster response focus area. So we have natural resource management and volunteer engagement, and then we have disaster response, which involves helping at Red Cross shelters and also responding to dolphin strandings. So we have an individual placement at IFAW working with their stranding team. So she goes there 1 day a week, and it's basically like a year-long internship. And then as they need us, we get called out and respond as well.
That's great. So. Americorps really does expose you to a lot of different things that you could then say, I really like that, or I really want to go in that direction, and that's a wonderful thing.
Yeah, absolutely.
Now, were both of you here before?
Yes.
I mean, you were here in the last year? That's what I thought. Because I remember you from last year.
She made all the pictures.
Right, that's right, your graduation and all that, yes, I remember. So I guess, what's different about this year? I know the weather has been a lot warmer, so you must be working harder than you would in a winter where there's snow and weather conditions are not the best. What do you say?
I know from our perspective, we've spent a lot of the winter in herring runs. That has been one of our main focus areas. And just doing that in low temperatures can be really difficult, especially when you're trying to break through ice and dealing with snow. So the mild winter has definitely been really helpful in that regard. And also, because it has been so mild, and if it continues to be that way and we don't have to wait for the ground to thaw, we can get started on a lot of our garden and farm work earlier, which would be really great.
Yeah, our members have loved the mild winter.
So you'll have different pictures this year than last year.
Well, I knew that was the high point of going to a graduation, was looking at those pictures. It really brought to everybody how much stuff was going on.
Yeah.
See, I think the last time I was at one of your events was at Orleans when they had the planting. I guess that's coming up again soon, over at the Orleans Elementary School.
Oh, yeah. We have our Americorps Week in May. We're going to be in Dennis this year, actually.
Dennis, okay.
So
great. look forward to hearing about it.
Yeah. Okay.
Great. Well, thank you.
Well, thank
Thank
you,
you
and,
very much for
and
coming.
thank you, I mean, I think it's great work with the dolphins, and there's something's amiss,
What's it
obviously.
like when working on with the stranded dolphins?
Um,
What do you actually do, and what do the volunteers do?
Yeah, so we get called out and we gear up in our waders and all of our layers, and then we go out. When we get there, the IFOS staff assign us different roles. So we might be monitoring their breathing, we might be monitoring a lot of things. And then when they want to take them off the beach, if they're healthy enough to release, we play a big role there in lifting the dolphins and carrying them off the beach. And then for releases, we do the same thing. We'll carry them down onto the beach, and then they usually release as a group. So they need like 20 to 30 people if they have like 4 or 5 or 6 dolphins. And we all get on a stretcher and just walk them in.
Right.
What about the pregnant dolphin that they wrote up about? Were you involved with that one?
I personally wasn't at that one. I think we did have a couple of Americorps people there, but
How do you monitor their breathing?
you watch their blowhole. They're
yeah?
supposed to breathe like 2 or 3 times a minute, and so you just watch their blowhole and wait for it to go. And then you count that as one. So, pretty simple. Pretty simple.
Very exciting.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Definitely.
Well, that's great.
Well, thank
Well,
you
I'm
for
glad
coming
that
in
it all
and
is going
giving
well.
us your update.
Thank you for
Thank
having
you.
us.
Thank you.
Okay, so our agenda item today is to have another discussion on the budget.
Yep, I
Mark?
have sort of the final version, and I don't think it's any different from the one I handed out last week. And Marcia, if you want to copy, I have a copy for you. And so that's what the budget looks like. 23,580. So I think it's the same as it was last week. There's no changes. And those are the final numbers that we'll be using. And then I did do a draft of the transmittal letter, so you can take a look at that. I don't expect you to comment on it today, but you can get comments to me over the next week or so, less than a week, and then we have to sort of go into production next Monday or Tuesday. I'll start having Karen make copies.
Okay, I have a question to raise. Remember, we started off inviting the assembly to, let's say, to participate in what we were doing, and I know that there were meetings where some of them came.
4 or 5, yeah.
And I'm wondering, as we're, what lessons have we learned from, let's say, from that, as to whether or not we could find out whether it's a timing issue? In other words, would it have been better had we met at a later time during the day to allow for more participation on the part of the assembly? And I guess what we have to ask the assembly is whether or not being open to, or inviting them to participate, as to whether or not they saw that as being useful, in terms of their process. And they, of course, I don't think they'd know that until after they actually went through the committee process. I had heard from some from some assembly members that we had our work to do and they had their work to do, and that didn't necessarily overlap. Although I thought that our effort to, let's say, not to incorporate, but to invite, was a very useful step as far as moving the process along. And I have a second question, which is, if we are so concerned about the accuracy of a forecast, when I was in the private sector, we looked at getting projections of available income as close to the end of the year as possible in order to support the accuracy of a forecast. Making a forecast at the middle point of the year doesn't always tell you, where you are. And I will remind folks that when I started with this, they were using the entire year before. So in other words, it was like a 6 to 7 month interval before, say that that went on that wasn't really addressed at all. You remember that, Mark, where we were looking at if we were in fiscal 10, we were actually looking at figures of fiscal 8 as far as the guidance, and we were looking at differences between those two. So I think these are things that that we need to say think about as we go forward as far as what projection would we really hang our hat on based upon what can we know and how can we support a forecast based upon what we know?
Jill?
I also wanted to know, did you talk to Jack?
Not yet, no.
Okay, so there might be a little adjustment still if you two feel like you're...
Yeah, I mean, I suppose that's possible, but I haven't had a chance to.
Okay, well, the only reason I bring it up is that in talking to, a couple of delegates, in different unique places, that seems to be an important thing, that they would like to see that reflected similar, to have those numbers be more aligned as opposed to you have your projections and Jack has his projections. So before we go in,
Well, I think that's
I
what
want to
we
make
tried
sure
to
that we
do,
have everything that we
reducing
need.
the deeds tax assessment this year, so.
Yeah, I mean, I just want to be prepared for those
I think
concerns.
in my opinion, we've made it quite clear that we want let's say, an agreed upon figure. I don't think we've been,
I know, and I
able
have
with
said that to them, that we have said this all along, but I just, saying it and then having it, actually sort of, so I think it's just worth, so you have that under your belt.
I would love to be able to submit the budget to the Assembly for a May vote, but then you have better information, but it's not how the process works.
Well, and then
How would you
January
change that
was,
process?
there was a significant uptick in January, was
Yeah.
it not? What
Yeah,
was it, like
January
20% or
Yeah,
something?
but in the same way that we shouldn't look at a
No, I
one-month
know,
fall, we
but
should
I'm
look
just
at a
saying,
one-month increase.
I realize-
Well, we don't look at 1 year, we
No.
don't look at 1 month, we look at, what it was, I can't even remember the now, I think it was back to 96.
Yeah, the trends. You look at the trends.
Try to look at as much information as the best information you can.
Right.
Do the best you can, but.
Well, I don't really see a lot of difference in these figures because it looks like the revenue source is still looking.
Well, it's no different, it's
Yeah,
the same.
And the other one, so we're looking at almost a 6% decrease. Of course, that does take into account that we are not using any of the CLC figures, either the in or the out. I think that's probably what accounts for that. So have you come up with a...
Well, it counts for $1 million of that, Bill, if you look at the CLC number.
Okay.
So
we're
which
looking-
really, in effect, you cut your budget $400,000.
Okay, and that's also accommodates the difference between the 750 to, yeah. Was it?
So-
900, so you actually, by reducing the deeds tax estimate, does that account for the $400,000?
Well, it's all of those numbers together,
Yeah,
as you can see. Some are up, some are down, you can't look at any one number, you have to look at everything.
But the biggest
It's like
number is the revenue
The
from
biggest
the deeds tax.
number is the
Yeah.
deeds tax, that's correct.
So it's a balanced budget, but it's 400,000 less than last year.
In effect.
In
correct.
effect.
That's
Yeah,
right.
yeah, real numbers there. I know in the private sector, when you get to this point as far as the shortfall, your boss turns around and says, and you're going to make this up, by going out there and finding the money. Unfortunately, in the public sector, we don't have that opportunity, let's say, to find, let's say, to work towards that without getting into some serious problems.
Well, I mean, there are measures that one can take as you get towards the end. I mean, if all of a sudden the deeds tax fell off a cliff, say in April and May or something like that, there are ways to recover from that. You stop spending, something like that. I mean, there are a number of things that you can do. If you have 60 days, say, to make a correction, it can be done.
Well, and I
I
sincerely
mean, there are
believe we can do
last-minute
that,
drastic
yeah.
things that can be done if it had to be done.
Right.
So it isn't like you have to start in January making changes like that, because you really don't know probably until May what it's really going to be like.
Yeah, I think if you had drastic issues that you saw a need to reduce services by a substantial amount, you'd have to look at the deeds tax itself. Remember, you still have some room in the deeds tax. But I think we made a policy decision this year not to do that. And I think that's the right decision, because you're not drastically cutting back services. You're preserving services. It's going to be a tight budget next year, but we'll be able to deliver what we're delivering now.
Yeah, I know that what you just said was something that I think was, very, very much supported by a member of the Assembly, with regard to looking at increases in the tax. And since we have the pleasure of accompanying a member of the Assembly, I wonder if we should invite her to make comments.
Well, I mean, we're anticipating it'll be $450,000 less than this year. I mean, I think that's a reasonable number.
Yeah, the numbers just aren't there.
That's
yeah,
exactly. It's an intelligent number. And if it turns out to be more, that's fine. If it doesn't, there's still other options that can be taken.
The other thing to consider, I think, sort of at the end of this year and even at the end of next year, one of the things we didn't get the opportunity to do is sort of set aside some of those savings from the health insurance piece. So maybe that's a thing we can look at. If we have some money left over, so to speak, we can look at setting aside some of that money, either the end of this year or even the end of next year, for GASB, OPEB, or whatever other.
Yes, that's another policy decision that we should probably take up, is how we're going to handle the OPEB.
Yeah,
and how we're going to do that.
How we're going to handle the
OPEB,
OPEB
other personnel,
post-employment
employment benefits.
right.
I think a lot of the towns are being faced with that as well.
Yes, sort of coming to a
Because no one
head.
has ever done, I mean, the retirement system moves along pretty well. It has an end date in terms of fully
That's right,
funding the
funding
retirement
schedule.
system.
Yeah.
But when it comes to OPEB, the other personnel employee, what is it, personnel
Other
employee?
post-employment
Post-employment benefits.
So it's
Then-
health insurance, really.
Which is really health insurance,
Yeah.
yeah. It's how are you going to pay the health insurance for
Right.
retirees, because there are no set-asides for
Right. We're on a pay-as-you-go system.
that. Right.
Whatever the bill is for both the active employees and the retirees, that's what you pay. And that's how retirement used to be 30 years ago. And then they established a funding schedule because you, as a person employed in the county, you're creating liability going forward.
So we may want to create a special stabilization fund of some sort.
Yeah, you can set up a
That
fund.
each year we put money into it,
Mhm.
and then we design it similar to the retirement funds.
Yeah, it's called an irrevocable trust.
Right.
And that's a scary word because once you put the money in, you can't get it
Can't
out.
take it out.
Yeah.
Also, I recall that when we used to set up retirement plans in the private sector, you had to continue to contribute to it.
You fund it, yeah, exactly.
So
Right.
is it the same thing?
It'd be the same thing. We have the numbers because we do this
Yeah.
actuarial calculation every year.
Yeah.
We do it for 30 towns, units across the Cape. And Siegel does the calculations, an actuarial calculation. Here's how much you have to pay every year in order to fully fund your liabilities.
So it's not a step to be taken lightly.
No, it's something that's out there, sort of the 800-pound gorilla in the room, sort of. Nobody's paying attention to it right now, but it's going to eventually come to it.
One
I
thing-
just wish it were companies, in order to continue to fund something that they had an obligation.
And one thing that helps lower it is that people are working longer.
Yeah,
So, I mean, people who used to retire at 55, some of them aren't retiring until 65 or 70, as the
Right.
case may be, not only in the public sector, in the private sector, but the public sector as well. People want to work longer. So that helps
That helps.
with that, because they come under the current,
of course, the offset to that is they live longer.
well, that's true
Under
too.
the actuarial
That's
tables,
right,
people
yeah.
live longer.
Well, that,
One of the things that does help on that, we've had it since that law was passed, and we made it, it was a local option originally. That's the whole Chapter 32B, Section 18, which is the mandatory Medicare. We've always had that in place, so that's always helped us.
yeah.
But now the state, in their new reform laws, made that mandatory for everyone. So if you're eligible for Medicare, when you retire and reach that age, you're going to be on Medicare. That's how it's going to work in Massachusetts. And most people who have been employed after it's 84 are going to be eligible for Medicare because you're paying into it. Whether
After
you
84?
are eligible for Social Security or not, 1984.
Or 1984.
I think that's when they passed that reform. So some people are not eligible, and never will be, but most employees are going to be eligible.
It's unusual, but you always have some very few people who
Yeah, if
are
they're
not
hired, I think it's
eligible
not
for
before
Medicare.
84. Yeah. They've never paid in, so. Yeah, I do plan on meeting with Jack. As you know, Jack father passed away
Right,
last
right,
week,
right.
so we sort of haven't been able to just connect. But Monday, I plan on meeting with Jack and just going over the numbers.
The chairman of the finance committee at the assembly had said that he was going to try to get in touch with you when you had this had these figures at this stage, and I wonder if it would be useful if you reached out to him and told him that the figures are ready.
Yeah, that certainly. Yeah.
And perhaps Marcia could pass that on. You're on the finance committee too.
I think John was on vacation.
He's back now.
He might be back now, but he was.
The other way, yeah. But we didn't have the figures, as far as, it looks like a fairly close to a final stage here. What do you need from, what do we have to do now? Do you need a vote?
No, I don't need anything. What I will do is, once I have it's about 275 pages, the real document.
Yeah.
Next week I'll bring that to you and I'll put together a little presentation that we'll deliver on Wednesday. And you can sign the transmittal letter. That's why I gave it to you. You can take a look at that.
I haven't read the transmittal letter yet, but I think that last year we, as part of the presentation, we were giving some of our thoughts as to why, as to what our motivation was in making the selections that we did. Does your letter speak to that?
Yeah, and I think the presentation does that. There's like theme. I think the themes is the word that you guys use. And I think 2013 really a preservation theme. Theme,
Yeah, there's a theme to our budget.
Because you really, I would say the emphasis in the letter and the emphasis in the presentation will be really kind of responding to the regional umbrella.
Service.
Yeah, whatever they call service center, I think is what it is, the Russ thing.
Yes.
Sort of, that's the only new thing you really have in here. So sort of one of preservation and one of trying to deal with the opportunities I think that Open Cape will present starting next fiscal year, really.
Right. And then if I can follow up on that, we discussed this last week, and I said that I had spoken with Dan, and he has to. It feels like it's being pressured, but because of the budget, but it's not. He is at a point where he has to move on to the next thing, and it really is this regional umbrella services. And even though we say that we want to do this, he needs a letter in writing from us, and I said that I would draft that.
Well, wait a minute, before you do though, I spoke with him too last week.
Yes.
And we talked, and we want to put a small group together to really take a look at what it is we need to do and get very specific about it. So what the role of the county is going to be, what specific obligations we have, and then send the letter out. And Mark is going to put together a group that would just
Yeah, I
look at
think
this.
Paul, and we were sort of talking about it, Pat and I a little bit.
Yeah,
We
and
sort
Dan,
of-
to try to put together in more specifics
Exactly.
what this means to the county.
Well,
how much we need to do, what are our obligations going to be, what sources of revenue will we have perhaps, and what will that do in terms of the services that are included in the RUS. Because we can say, yeah, it's a great idea, we want to do it, but we have to be very clear about what it means to the county.
Exactly right.
Yeah.
And that's why I'm glad that you had that conversation with him. I've had several.
Yeah.
So this is just really an information that I'm giving you for that, and it is like a draft. It's not. So I just wanted to give you that so that, and I do think it would be good. I totally support that. I was going to suggest getting together, for us, an information meeting.
Yeah.
And
Dan,
then we
Paul,
can deliberate in
me,
public, right.
IT, and just sort of talk about what, we sort of have the bones, we need to put some flesh on it.
And
So
then,
we really know
who's
what it
going
is.
to do this? Obviously we have some money, we have to hire somebody. And then, how is that person going to fit into the organization?
Right.
Where, for a period of time, and then where does that person go after that?
Right.
And using space at the co-location center up the hill.
Or here, yeah.
Or here,
something,
however,
right.
all those details I think we have to be clear about before we commit to it. I think it's a great
No,
thing.
I absolutely
Yeah.
agree, but all I'm saying is time is of the essence, because
Right.
he is on a timeline.
Right. We
So,
understand that.
this is really a overall view of the RUS system and
Good.
how it is seen by them, and also just sort of like a
Okay.
draft letter.
Oh,
I put.
good.
Yeah.
So this is a good starting point for you to do, and I think, I spoke to them, they'd like to talk maybe Monday afternoon, if everyone's available Monday afternoon, and just kind of go over these things. Nothing's written in stone, there's no policy
Maybe you
here.
could
It's just a
Yeah,
starting,
yeah.
no, they're all copied. I can make
Oh, they're all
a copy
copied?
each of you.
Let me
Oh,
tell you.
There's one there for you,
Is,
there's 2 copies there
Oh,
now.
I'm sorry.
you know, putting together
there's 2
the,
copies
One
there.
is for, yeah, I mean, it just, I had,
Oh, great.
there was a piece of,
You have another
in this
copy?
Open Cape letter, I thought
Yep,
there
that we
was,
got from
yes.
him, yep.
so you have the other page, I thought, that's why it's ripped, because the second page had nothing to do with this, it got somehow inserted. So, look at the letter after, you know, what he says here, because he basically spells out, you know, his,
Right.
Is there more to this particular?
yes, there is, that's what I was saying. When I copied this,
Oh,
I
it didn't
thought
open
page
that?
2 was the next page, but it was something that was totally irrelevant
Oh,
to the county. It was a personal page. So I had to rip it out, and I obviously don't have the second
well, we have it
page, but you
somewhere.
have it on your
I have the
email.
Open
Yeah.
Cape letter, yeah, we have it, yeah.
Oh, this is good.
That was the
So-
one I gave you the other day when we had.
Yeah.
So if they're available Monday, we might want to consider
If we
something.
could do
That's-
Here's the trouble, you know, it's a 275-page document, and it's not an easy thing to put together.
Right.
And so that's where I spend my time over the next several days. It has to be ready, it has to put, all those pieces have to be put in place. That's what I'm working on.
Right.
Well, I thought we were going to have a discussion about it.
Yeah, I
Not
think-
necessarily have the whole thing ready to go.
Right.
Well, on Wednesday the 15th, the budget
Yeah, the
has to
budget
go to the
has to
Assembly.
go.
That's what I'm talking about.
Oh, you're talking about the
Right.
budget.
That's my focus.
Okay, all right, so you're
That's-
saying that
that's
you
what
might
I'm
not be
thinking.
available
After the
for-
budget.
I would love to be able to accommodate all the other things, but I can't right now. That's after the budget, we'll have plenty of time.
Okay, then we'll set it up after Wednesday.
Yeah, exactly.
That's fine.
Okay, so here's just some reading
Okay,
and
that's good.
a starting point.
That's very good.
Thank you.
So that's the budget. And actually, I think, you know,
Now, you're going to do the PowerPoint presentation?
I'll
like
put
you
that
did last
together
year?
and bring that in on Wednesday next week, so you have a chance to take a look at that, comment on that, and yeah, then we'll bring that over to the Assembly. I thought actually the Assembly participation was probably as good as it has ever been
Right.
in any time of the budget that I've done. So I thought the one where we had several here for the revenue
Discussion.
discussion,
Right.
that was very helpful, so.
I thought it was too.
So, if I can move on to another thing,
Sure.
just now,
Before we leave that,
Yeah.
are you going to ask Marcia if she has anything?
Yeah, would you?
No, I have no comment. I'll be leaving momentarily. No.
You're welcome
I
to
look
stay.
forward to your huge thing next Wednesday.
my huge budget, right, and I do a executive summary, so.
Which is different from the cover letter.
The cover letter is a requirement under the charter.
Right.
And this cover letter requires you to say certain things, specifically about debt service and, you know, a couple of things about this. So that's something that we have to
Yes.
include every year.
But that's this cover letter that you just
That's
gave
that
us.
one, yeah.
Right,
You
and it
guys can
has
take
more
a
of a
look at
narrative.
it.
Yes, I said it right.
And,
It's
you know,
really
send
good.
me any comments that you have, because there's plenty of time to change that. And the presentation will mirror that to some extent. It just kind of goes over the summary of what's in the budget and what your themes are, if you remember what we've done in the past.
Okay, great.
So, and, you know, the problem with the, you know, from our perspective, if I have a problem with the budget, it's all on the timing, you know. First week in March is certainly better. They feel constricted on their end. So we've been working on this year on the second meeting in February. Happens to be the 15th, you know, one day over the 2-week point. So
Another copy of that.
that's really the hard part, I think, about this budget, is the time
Can
frame
you-
for us is so compressed.
February is
Basically,
just-
you've got like 5 weeks to work on it, less
Right.
than that.
I know. And in February, when you've got 4.5 months left out of the year.
Yeah, exactly. Your
Yeah.
information is halfway through the
I
year
know,
at
the
best.
time, the schedule is really
Yeah.
not appropriate,
No.
because you have it until what? At April sometime, the end of April?
Yeah, I think the middle of the second
Yeah,
week
which
in
is
April,
really
so.
2 months.
Yeah,
Well,
we
we
should
don't
give
have
them-
2
we
months
should
to put
make
it
it May.
together.
They have to vote on it in May. That's what
You have to vote, but
I think
still.
they'll vote on it the second meeting in May.
Actually,
Yeah, we should be able to.
Yeah, I
Right.
mean, you have more time with the budget than we do,
Right.
when you think about it. Which-
just as an assembly member, I will say, for all the years, I thought you've always done a great job. And
Thanks, I appreciate that.
I know some members have massive agita about the revenues.
And they should.
I have some,
Yeah.
but I also, as I've said to them in many meetings, I have been on the board 12 years, and you've never failed in 12 years, and that's a pretty good record.
We're still here.
So, exactly.
We never had to auction a courthouse off.
Right, I mean, you know, I understand, and I understand all of that, and I think you've done personally, I think you've done a great job. I look forward to the executive summary, and it's gonna be a tough year.
And I think that what
Thank
most
you for
people
that,
don't
Marcia.
understand.
Oh,
That's
no,
very-
you know,
But that's very helpful.
well, you know, I
for you
think
to say.
I've been on the finance committee, I think, you know, almost 10 out of the 12, and you know, I'm a little more relaxed about it. I think it's tough, but I also think you understand that, and you always have.
Yeah, we sort of know where we are. We try to.
Can
Put some
I
money
say,
aside when
you
we
aren't
can.
laying anyone, there is no layoffs in this budget.
No layoffs.
That's
No,
good.
no
That's
new
amazing.
positions, but no
No,
layoffs.
Right, no, I knew.
Yeah, there
no,
were new positions
Right.
requested, but they were
Right,
not.
no, I know you had mentioned it in the
Yeah.
last
Well,
meeting.
you know, Marsh, what I always say, you gotta protect what you have and make wise choices for what
No,
you need.
you know.
Well,
for-
the other thing is, it's not in Mark's best interest to put together a budget that's gonna fail, or our best
No, that's
interest
just
to
a
approve
mess
something
later
that
on.
isn't
Oh,
going to work.
totally, if it blows up,
So-
we're all in
Yeah, you just gotta
trouble.
clean
right.
it all
And the
up.
county
Yeah.
suffers.
And I think that part of the problem is that, you know, the average guy coming into, you don't really understand government budgets. They're different than private budgets. And most people look at this as their own, you know, this is what I do in my business. And it's a municipal budgets 101, and accounting is different. And that is not appreciated. So you go from a different frame of reference and you're beating
Yeah, I mean,
it from a different
I understand some of the
I mean,
members'
you
comments.
understand most, because you've been in, you know,
Yeah,
the government,
but-
you know,
yeah, I
in
understand their
towns
comments.
and that sort of thing, so
But-
you get it more than.
Second thought, actually.
Well, I would say I get it more than they do. I mean, I understand how it works, and you know, it would be, but for the 12 years I've been on, we've done a great job. We've done, you know, people look back and think of the excess money that went to the programs. It's staggering. It's phenomenal. It's wonderful. What the county does, what people have no idea, is amazing. On $25 million, by the way.
Yes.
We're not talking Barnstable 150. We're not talking
Yeah.
my town at 40 something. We're talking 20. You know, now it's 23 and a half. So yeah, I give you guys a lot of credit. You know.
With 95, I think, weren't we in a $12 million budget? I can't remember.
Before my time.
I remember when Falmouth was a $13 million budget.
I remember my town was
Yeah,
like 15 million and stuff. You know.
Now, the
So-
glorious days of yesteryear.
That is
Right,
amazing.
12 million, you know, 23.5, there's a lot of stuff in there. There's a lot of programs, and people do not understand, don't know what goes on, and it's amazing.
And I think that we saw that when we met with all the different boards of selectmen in the different towns, when we provided them with their services report, they had no idea the value of the county services to the town, and programs that the town wouldn't have the funding to be able to do on their own.
Oh,
And the fact that the
absolutely.
county can provide these on a,
Just what they were saying, Americorps, you know, just emptying out the herring ones. I know in my town, it's huge, and you know, when I first moved to the Cape, herring, that's something you eat, you know, or just, so you didn't eat. It's amazing. And I agree. I think that people don't understand when you read that book that you guys do every year, your annual report, the amount of work that is done by the county is, for $24 million is amazing. It's just amazing. So I give you credit. I can bother you about I'm concerned about the revenues, but I also have a little more comfort level than some of the other members do with the administration. I mean, really. Enough said.
Well, that's all
All right.
this self-congratulations.
Yes, you all feel
Yeah,
good
you
now we're in that
don't need to
moment?
say all
Okay,
that.
I see plans over there.
Yeah.
well, your 12 years makes a difference.
It does, and I think that, you know, some of the newer members, and I've said that, you know, I've been here 12 years, and we've never had a fight when you were on of revenues. It was too much revenue.
Too much money.
You know,
You know,
right.
we used to fight over.
So
what to do with
it's
it.
you remember those great old
I
days.
remember that.
Good old
There was
days.
so
Good
much
old
money, you
days.
didn't know, you gave it away.
Yeah, we were giving it away.
Yeah, but look at that. I look back and think that was in itself.
That was really.
It was wonderful. That programs were funded that should be funded now that can't. I mean, it's just
Right.
amazing. It's just amazing. We think all this programs.
Filling in the gaps that the state didn't provide or the feds
Yes,
didn't provide.
amazing.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Or the towns didn't
Or
have
the
the
towns
resources
didn't
for it.
provide.
We're trying to take care of our own.
Yeah, and I think that You know,
And we
when
would still do that. I think the whole focus, even though the revenues are going down, is we're focusing on what we can do, not what we can't do. And I think that, all through the budget process, all through the things that we've been looking at, it's all been about how can we hopefully move forward without being, without being unrealistic, in order to do what we think is important to serve the needs of our constituents here on Cape Cod.
Well, I do.
We're the
Setting
only organization
priorities.
that represents all of the citizens of Cape Cod.
I mean, yeah, some of your core stuff, I mean, like Children's Cove, I mean, who else does something that's funded by the county? It's amazing. Certain things like that, the dredge, they all work, but I digress and I did not mean to go off and apologize.
Okay, well, let's go on
Okay.
to approve commissioners' actions, and
Well,
then,
actually,
oh, you want to do something
I just wanted to
first?
do one more
Okay.
thing, and this was...
I noticed you have the architectural drawings.
Exactly, John, based on our meeting, thank you, Marcia, based on our meeting last week and our tour of the old jail and house of correction, John put together the plans based on the floor plans. And basically what you see in front of you is basement, main, and upper levels, and the red reflects the empty space, the available space that we have up at the jail and house of correction. So you see most of it, it's all in the south wing, the 3 levels, and some pieces on the east wing and
As exciting as this is in terms of identifying empty space, I was at a place where District Attorney Michael O'Keefe was, and he has an entirely different view with regard to this. He had stated to me that he wanted to find out whether or not we would entertain a demolition of the building up in the hill, with the idea of using the revenue, which I think is close to about $300,000 for his, and the Cape Cod Commission, which is about $260,000, I think.
no, it's not that much.
It's 100 and something.
100 something. Okay, but his point was that with demolition and with bonding, we could create what would be a complex that wouldn't, let's say that would take into account what a modern building would look like. And he's quite concerned as to, as to the direction we're taking. It's his opinion that there's enough money generated with revenues from the, rental properties, what they're paying for rental, to accommodate this. He's very concerned that the condition of the buildings that he's in is providing some significant concern. He cited an example of one of his assistant district attorneys who was pregnant and was dealing with the age of the building and the mold that was involved. And this I would suggest supports what Sheila has been suggesting as far as looking at this.
Thank you.
All right, well, I'm just standing with the.
I know, we're about 3 years too late.
How short memories we have. What short memories we have.
Yeah, right.
Wow, don't you remember? We had a plan to demolish this building and put up a new building.
Well, I thought this was your topic. This is a softball to you, Mark,
Yeah.
and then you can jump in with that.
What exactly held that up, other than that we couldn't put it in Hyannis?
Town Clem,
But how did they do that? What did they have over?
As the official historian at the table, why don't you share with us?
But what did
No,
they have?
we
to
had
say
a
you
plan
can't
to do
it?
that, and
Didn't go anywhere.
didn't go anywhere. Yeah, wasn't. Some people didn't appreciate that plan.
I think
They
that-
wanted us to locate in downtown
It's
Hyannis.
unfortunate because
There was a bunch of
that was
different.
a moment
tugging.
that was a perfect moment, and it's unfortunate that they didn't go forward.
Yeah, they wanted us to look in downtown Hyannis and be an anchor tenant, which I think is fairly short-sighted. Because
What would happen about
we're
Barnstable
around 9 to 5 or 8 to 4:30 or whatever, and then we close up and go home. So,
And that's all part of it. Unfortunately,
it's a little bit short-sighted too. That affordability is an issue. That was an issue in moving from this campus to downtown Hyannis. So what you're going to end up doing is paying for property in downtown Hyannis and owning this, by the way, because states may or may not take the buildings. They may not. So you have to be careful of that. Sort of that rear guard action. What you don't really want to be is an absentee landlord to the state. That's probably the worst of all possible worlds. So there was that issue there, and you know, the whole affordability of building a building exists as well. It was, I'd say, then the plans indicated that you could tear this down and build something for a fairly reasonable price. I think at that time it was probably $400 a square foot. We were looking at a 40,000 square foot building that would put everybody in one building on campus.
And I remember, you know, several years ago, you know, you and I had a conversation about how useful it would be to have an administrative complex that was actually all under one roof.
Yeah.
And that, you know, that in doing that, you had a better opportunity for looking at opportunities for consolidation and collaboration, you know, among the different administrative functions, you know, at the county, which is consistent with what I would call a, let's say, a business efficiency approach to, you know, to the overall issue of how do you serve people's needs in a public sector, and then have the infrastructure sort of spread out and having, you know, bits and pieces. I know that we're moving partly towards that by moving our health and you know, health department up to the hill and putting it in, you know, in a building that it's going to be more efficient. That's one of the things.
Well, I also remember we looked at the route, Finney's Lane Route 132 site. We looked at building something out there. So we went through a kind of comprehensive planning process to try to figure out when we knew the sheriff was going to leave, what to do. And, you know, sort of we were left with what we've got now.
Can I ask a question? What was it that actually stopped it, though? I mean, was it...
Town of Barnstable didn't want us to do it.
But what power do they have to I mean, they don't want us to do a lot of things. And, you know, that doesn't mean that they can stop us from doing it.
You have to address your question to Rob O'Leary and John Clem. I don't know. I wasn't privy to those things. All I knew is...
So Rob was the commissioner.
All I knew is we weren't building the building up on the top of the hill.
You also had, as I remember, Rob O'Leary also took exception of looking at Finney's Lane, because there was, you know, it was a thought that we could build a building over there,
right,
and have, you know, and have parking, you know, for that.
Let me stop you, Bill, because on that one I would say that one, not just Rob, that one had some issues, because I think it's in, if I remember, it's in a recharge. It's about a 6-acre parcel.
Yep.
It's in a recharge zone, so you cut half of it off.
right.
So to fit a 40,000 square foot building on the 3 acres with parking, that was really, 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 you could do it. It wasn't impossible, but it was tight. It was very tight. And again, sort of that 132 corridor, that's not where they wanted people to go. I suppose you could make the argument that you're not on 132, you're on Addicts Lane, but that one was a real tight, that wasn't the preferred alternative.
And I think that one of the arguments against it was that in order to accommodate a 40,000 square foot building, you'd have to go up an additional story. So, you know, the
it was definitely multi-story
building,
no
so it wouldn't be a... You know,
and I'm using 40 now, but that, of course, was 10, 12 years ago.
Just when I was getting started.
It was like 2000, I think, when we were doing all this. So I'm not saying that's the right number anymore, but that's what we were planning on then.
Can I ask or make a comment from our tour last week? And it was the only concern I had. Number one, you mentioned the mold, so I'm sure we've had the mold checks up there and that sort of thing. Okay, so
yeah.
Now that you
the health
bring
department's
that
up there. So.
That's what I mean. So I'm sure that that's at least being addressed. But the thing that concerned me was the IT, where all the IT was. It is really, there's a lot of construction dust, and I know that construction's going on, and it's almost futile. But it is really building up, and that's all expensive equipment, and it, you know, it gets sucked in and blown out with their fans to keep them cool. I really think that we got to make a priority to keep that, get somebody to professionally clean that room and then keep it clean, because that's a big investment, and I can see it getting clogged up. So, I mean, I know that we're stretched for custodial services, but that is one room that I think really needs a good vacuum, wipe down, you know, suck all that stuff out and then maintain it, because I'm just, you know, I just saw it. I mean, and John says, yeah, you know, look at all this, you know. Okay, what are we going to do about it, John? I mean, can you get, even you and your guys get in there? I mean, I'll come in and help you clean it.
I find myself in support of the piggyback on that, because what they don't have in there, they didn't have a fire suppression system in, you know, in the server room, you know, which is part of having a clean room. So, that's,
Yeah, I mean,
'cause
of all the
I think I
rooms, that
mentioned
is
at the
really,
time,
that
yeah.
is
Yeah.
there's a lot of money in that room, and I wouldn't want it to just start, choking up because
Yeah,
we're
and
not
most
taking
rooms of
care of
that
it.
sort are under positive pressure to
Right.
keep stuff out of it.
Right.
So in the rooms that, in companies that I've worked for that had similar rooms, there was positive pressure, there was a fire suppression system, and it was basically a sealed environment to maintain a level of humidity that provided stability to, the server equipment. So, but what do I know about that?
Yeah, I know, I agree. So, but I do think that it's something that we gotta take a look at because, if they all start breaking down a year from now because we didn't do this, at least I haven't. I've said
Well, gee, I'm up to 2, I even hit 3.
Thank you. I know this is a good day for me. Yeah. Who knows,
Yeah,
Bill?
bunch of blessings.
Yeah.
Okay, what are you going to tell us about this?
He's just showing us what we have.
I told you everything
I
you need
think,
to know.
I think we need to give some thought to this and, in terms of how we go forward in the future with this space.
If,
Yeah,
for
In terms of
example,
space planning.
if, for example, on South Wing, he removes the jail cells, which he said were fairly easy to remove. It's an interior space without windows, so the question comes up: what kind of, administrative office space would you do for that? It sort of takes the Dilbert cubes, thing up to a new level. So you'd be replacing cells, in my opinion, with what would mount cubicles, and then it would be an
We have to be
interior
careful
space.
how we discuss this in deliberator, because it's really not on the agenda.
Okay.
Well, it's
Well,
nothing
we're
to
just
deliberate.
discussing, we're not deliberating.
The
There
answer
could be
to
in the
Bill's
Making observations.
rather question is, you put windows in.
Yeah.
That's what you have to do.
You put
Well-
some Brigelets, coming down with light from above.
But the other thing that, when John was bringing us around, he said, some lawyers put their dibs on this, and I think you were there. And here's this beautiful room, and they're gonna use it for storage, and I said,
Well, that was the courthouse.
yeah, that's up
This
at the
was-
courthouse. Yep,
The
not the
courthouse.
courthouse, I'm talking about up at, when we were.
That's what I meant, but the
Yeah.
courthouse wanted to store.
I
Yes.
might add, John's probably the one who led to that room.
That's exactly, and I'm sure he did, but I said, John, this is potential rental space. I mean, how can you make, now this is gonna be used as storage and we're gonna offer something down in a basement. I think that there's gotta be, it can't be just up to John doing this leasing. I mean, where is the control of this operation? So that concerns me. And I think John's doing a great job in all the other areas, but is he the real estate agent too? I mean, I don't understand how we're doing this. It's very mishmash.
You bring up an interesting point, because if I were approaching this back from those days when I was teaching at the architecture center, you bring in an architect to come up with some
Right.
sort of a concept of what the space would look like going forward.
That's what I think we need to do with the space we have
And I
available.
think when we discuss it, we should discuss
Well,
that.
we should talk about space planning and
Yeah,
how we
exactly.
accomplish space
And
planning.
it should be done by
That is
somebody
the
who
way
has
to do it.
some competence in that area, rather than us speculating about how things should be
Or
applied.
sort of whoever
like
walks
to
in the
do.
door
Uh-huh.
first says, oh, I like that
Like they're doing now,
apartment.
exactly.
I'm gonna take the
In other words,
penthouse for
we're-
$1,000 where instead of
We're
the,
speculating when we should be.
Well,
getting
and I
some
think the other thing
professional
we have to
support.
mention too is that we can't have any more meetings up on the hill until the meeting room becomes handicap accessible, which John is working on now. Because, we couldn't, but we will very shortly,
Okay.
once that happens. So that,
It was
he's trying to
good that
make some
Beth brought that up,
adjustments to the health department so that you can go in that entrance and then walk through.
Okay, we have the ramp going up to the stairs, but
But
not
we need a lift.
over the stairs.
Yes,
Not
to
on,
get the
not
lift.
on the meeting room side though,
Right,
there's no
that's right,
ramp
yeah.
there.
So we have to figure out something
Well, John's already working on that.
good for it. Very important.
okay, so I said my piece. Thank you.
What else do you have, Mark?
We
That's it
have
from
the
me.
summary
That's
of action.
Yeah, we want to,
I will move that we approve the summary of action.
I'll second it.
all those,
Double spaced.
Aye. Yes,
Favor
I
say
could
aye.
actually read it really
Aye.
well.
reports?
I think I already made mine, because I'd seen that.
Right, and thank you.
Well, since I'm your representative on the Cape Cod Commission, I would simply note for the record that at the commission meeting last week, when the subcommittee presented their recommendations on the new wind generation project in Bourne, they denied it. And it was a public hearing, so the hearing went on for almost 4 hours. And there were a lot of, I don't think it was over till 6:45. There were a lot of people there. There were a lot of neighbors to the project. Many of the people spoke in favor of it, particularly young mothers with children, which was a little surprising to me. the school itself was not there, but others spoke about the fact that the school was in support of the project, that it would be very educational for the children. They didn't think it was going to create an issue. And there were some who spoke against it, obviously, and with the same concerns that it may have been too close, or they may have the same problems that people have from other turbines around the Cape. And so anyway, the hearing was closed, but opportunity for further documentation if anybody wanted to present it, which I think goes to next week. And then the commission meeting next week, the full commission, will hold their...
Will be the vote on the
will
project.
be the vote on the project. So that'll be interesting to see how that works out.
So they can still submit written comments?
Yes.
Written comments can still be submitted.
I think that my opinion on all of this is...
Oh, it is-
Okay.
Yeah, we don't want to discuss
Right,
opinions on
okay.
the project
I
here
just
today.
remember something else that
We're
you were
just
trying to say.
updating you on that because
Pat,
it's
you can't actually, because you
No, I can't because I have to vote on it next
Exactly.
week.
I had one other thing that had happened. The Bay Bridge had their 25th anniversary this was last week, and it was attended by Demetrius Hatzelis and Leon Turner, who came and gave a resolution in support of it. Bay Bridge, for people who live in Barnstable and go to downtown Hyannis, is a townhouse model clubhouse that supports folks that are coming back and rejoining us. We've had some issues with mental illness, and it's been in existence for 25 years, which is really remarkable.
Mm-hmm.
So it was really great that. And they had about 70 people, that had come, to be a part of
Did we
it.
get a notice on that?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, I did not see that.
But in any case...
I didn't see it either.
Okay, I'm on the Friends of Bay Bridge, so I was just representing...
Where is Bay Bridge?
It's at the corner of Main Street and... what was it?
Center.
Was it
Center Street, Center
Center Street?
Yeah, right there at that corner.
Oh, I've read about the project. yeah,
Right,
but I haven't.
right.
And then tomorrow there's a legislative breakfast at the YMCA.
Yes.
We'll all get a
That's
notice of
see, now,
that.
is that tomorrow or Friday?
It's tomorrow.
It's tomorrow, and the selectmen's breakfast is Friday.
Friday at Ardeo's.
I guess I had them on both on the same day. Thank you for telling me that.
Yeah.
Um,
Well, the one for the YMCA is at, I'm trying to think of where it is.
It's
I
at-
have
it's
it
at
in
the
my
YMCA,
calendar.
isn't it?
However,
I
I have a meeting, I might not be able to make it, the breakfast, although I would like to.
Can I just note, Madam Chair,
Okay.
that we haven't voted on the minutes yet?
Oh, okay. I
I'll
thought we
move
did
it.
that.
They're separate.
Oh,
Okay,
they're separate.
I'll vote to approve the minutes.
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Unanimous.
Okay, so it's on
It's
Friday.
at, it's on Ayana Road, 2245 Ayana Road. Where's that?
Isn't that where the Y is?
I thought so, yeah. Well, it is the YMCA.
Yeah. So it's the 9th. I had it on Friday. And it's at 8 o'clock.
It's at 8 o'clock. I think it's 8 o'clock. Yeah, 8 o'clock.
Gotcha.
And then, and tomorrow night, the special commissioners meeting, or tonight,
It's
the
tonight.
special commissioners meeting at 6:30 here in this room. And then I think they're meeting again on the 16th. Isn't that right? They switch from a Wednesday to a Thursday next week?
I can't
Are they
say
meeting
one way or the other, and I didn't go that far
Yeah, I
ahead.
think so.
Hmm.
They're supposed to be meeting tonight.
Yeah, they are meeting tonight.
Right.
Yeah.
Wow.
I don't remember seeing the thing.
Is it supposed to?
Yes, they are,
Yeah.
according to the press
And
release.
Yeah.
that's a week from Friday we're going to go on to.
You go where?
Tonight.
Who's gonna be at the special commission, anybody?
No, they're,
They're gonna be, the wastewater is gonna talk, and, I can't remember.
and they're getting reports.
I
They're
think
getting-
What is a week from Friday, Bill? I'm sorry. Are we supposed to be somewhere a week from Friday, did you say?
The 17th?
The 17th, that's the No, that's the
CMS thing.
cement, yeah.
Oh, yeah, that reminds me.
Yeah, Pat sent in the minutes, but I don't see her thing.
Yeah.
There's an agenda. She also has an agenda in there. Pat
Yeah,
has
she
it.
talked about, her email, they wanted to do a teleconference, so I have to make sure they have the teleconference.
Oh, for tomorrow night?
Special commission done tonight, right?
Tonight.
Tonight.
Oh, they want to, who's going to be?
I don't know.
Oh, interesting.
Anyway, what were you going to tell me?
I'll tell you afterwards. It's
Okay.
really not part of the agenda. So I gave the report on the turbines. I will tell you what's going on in Falmouth with the turbines. The Consensus Building Institute is in town, and there are a whole group of people that they are interviewing. They're doing an assessment, a community assessment, and this will take probably another week or two, and then they will come to the Board of Selectmen with their assessment in terms of where the community is based on the mitigation options, what people would like to see in terms of mitigation. And then they will go on, then they will make a recommendation as to what the next step is to make a determination, to have the board make a determination on what the mitigation should be.
And what's the time frame on that?
Town meeting,
Oh, yeah.
April 2nd. Anything else
No.
come before the board? I think
Nothing
we've
more.
done everything we need to do.
Yeah, move
So a
to
motion
adjourn.
to adjourn?
Next week,
Yes.
next meeting, you want to meet in the afternoon, it's Assembly Day.
Right,
That would be fine.
let's check that out. The 15th.
So 1 o'clock start?
Well, I have the Smarter Cape Cod Working Group is meeting at 2.
2, oh, all right.
And so
What time would you?
11,
12:30? How long will our meeting be next week?
Well,
do you
we're
think?
going to be finalizing the budget, maybe 12, just to give.
Yeah, are you going to do the presentation?
Right.
Oh, you're gonna, yeah, we probably should make it
Just take a look
12,
at it, so you can take a look at
Okay,
it.
so meeting is.
12 o'clock.
Yeah.
The Smarter Cape Cod Group, these are all the little committee groups.
Mhm.
I signed up for one. Must be out of my mind.
So it's 2:15,
I signed up for the one on governance.
12 o'clock. Okay.
What a good choice.
Yeah,
So just the budget.
the budget at 12 o'clock. So we're adjourned.
Yeah.
Okay.
Beth asked